First missiles didn't come from the sea. They didn't come from drones. They didn't come from submarines. They came from high above the Red Sea, carried by aircraft that had already crossed hundreds of miles of hostile airspace before anyone on the ground knew the strike had begun. When the explosion hit the runway, the Houthis thought it was an accident. By the time the second wave arrived, they understood the truth. This was not a warning. This was Israel's opening move. For months, Houthi forces had been expanding their reach beyond Yemen's borders. Missile launches toward Israel, drone attacks against shipping lanes, direct threats to international trade through the Red Sea and Bab el-Mandeb. To Washington and NATO planners, this was already a problem. To Israel, it was a red line. The airport wasn't civilian infrastructure in any meaningful sense. It had become a logistics hub for missile components, drone assembly, and Iranian-supplied equipment. Flights came in under humanitarian cover. Cargo disappeared into hardened shelters. Aircraft that should not have been there appeared and vanished. From an operational standpoint, it was a launch pad, and launch pads do not get warnings. Israel had options: standoff missiles, naval strikes, unmanned systems. Instead, it chose something deliberate and unmistakable: the F-15. For American audiences, the significance is clear. The F-15 is not a stealth novelty. It is a proven heavy strike platform designed to carry massive payloads, fly long distances, and fight its way in and out of contested airspace. Israel's modified F-15I is built for exactly this kind of mission: long-range, heavy weapons, precision under pressure. This was not about avoiding detection. It was about domination. For American and NATO audiences, the decision to use the F-15 carried deeper meaning than raw firepower. This was a platform choice rooted in doctrine. The F-15 is designed not just to strike, but to dominate airspace long enough to impose effects and leave on its own terms. Unlike lighter aircraft or unmanned systems, it can absorb risk, carry redundant systems, and adapt in real time when plans begin to fracture. This mattered because Yemen is not permissive airspace. While the Houthis lack an integrated air defense network comparable to a state military, they have spent years adapting Iranian tactics: mobile radar units, man-portable air defenses, dispersed missile teams operating from civilian infrastructure. Every engagement zone is cluttered. Every firing solution is improvised. For a strike package entering that environment, reliability is everything. The F-15's payload allowed planners to compress objectives into a single mission window. Runway denial, infrastructure destruction, and secondary target suppression could all be executed without relying on follow-on sorties. That reduces exposure. Fewer passes mean fewer chances for something to go wrong. This approach mirrors NATO air campaign philosophy. When escalation risk is high, you do not nibble at targets. You overwhelm critical nodes decisively, then disengage before the defender can adapt. Equally important was crewed decision-making. Unlike pre-programmed weapons or remotely piloted systems, the F-15 crews could respond dynamically to unexpected conditions: radar spikes, missile launches, last-minute intelligence updates. In modern conflicts, no plan survives first contact intact. Having pilots on board meant the strike could continue, even if communications degraded or targets shifted. This is a lesson the U.S. Air Force has emphasized repeatedly in red flag exercises and real-world operations. Autonomy is powerful, but judgment under fire still matters. By choosing the F-15, Israel signaled that this operation would not be experimental. It would not rely on novelty. It would rely on proven air power doctrine executed with precision. And once the aircraft crossed the point of no return, the timeline compressed. From that moment forward, every decision would be measured in seconds, not minutes. The strike package launched quietly. No public alerts, no signaling. Aircraft lifted off under radio silence and pushed south, flying profiles designed to minimize early detection while preserving fuel for the fight ahead. Tankers supported the mission, but only where necessary. Every mile flown mattered. Every minute airborne increased exposure. Below them, hostile radar systems scanned the sky. Above them, nothing but dark air. This was not a one-way trip. These pilots were expected to come home. The opening salvo targeted the runway, not hangars, not control towers, the runway. Because an airport without a runway is no longer an airport. It is a parking lot. Precision-guided munitions struck concrete at calculated intervals. Craters blossomed across the strip, making it unusable within seconds. Any aircraft on the ground was trapped, Any aircraft inbound had nowhere to land. From a NATO perspective, this is textbook air power logic. You don't chase every aircraft, you remove the ability to operate them. On the ground, confusion reigned. Emergency crews rushed in, thinking the damage might be limited. Then came the second impact. And the third. This wasn't harassment fire. This was systematic destruction. Fuel lines ruptured, power failed, secondary explosions rippled outward as stored equipment ignited. Within minutes, the airport's operational capability dropped to zero, but the mission was not finished. The F-15 rolled back in. This time, the targets were deeper. Aircraft shelters, maintenance facilities, storage depots hidden at the edge of the airfield. Weapons designed for penetration punched through reinforced roofs before detonating inside. Fires erupted where suppression systems failed. Structures collapsed inward, trapping equipment that would never be recovered. This was not symbolic damage. This was permanent denial. The Houthis were not defenseless. They possessed radar systems, man-portable air defenses, and early warning from regional sensors. But air defense is only as effective as reaction time. The F-15s flew fast, high, and with precision. Their profiles minimized exposure windows. Electronic support aircraft and onboard countermeasures complicated tracking. Missiles were fired. They missed. In modern air combat, seconds decide outcomes, and the defenders never had them. This strike was not just about the Houthis. It was a message aimed far beyond Yemen. Israel demonstrated it could reach deep into contested territory, destroy hardened infrastructure, and exit without losses. No drones sacrificed. No deniability games. This was overt power projection. For NATO observers, this matters, because it shows what a disciplined air force can still accomplish against irregular forces backed by a peer sponsor. By dawn, the airport no longer functioned. Runways cratered, facilities burning, equipment destroyed. Satellite imagery told the story clearly. What had once been a launch site was now a scar. For the Houthis, it was a crippling blow. Aircraft operations halted, logistics chains disrupted, missile and drone flow slowed overnight. For Israel, it was containment. For the region, it was escalation management by force. This was not an isolated regional event. For American and NATO planners, the strike reinforced several hard truths. First, manned aircraft are not obsolete. When used correctly with planning and support, they remain unmatched in flexibility and firepower. Second, runway denial remains one of the most effective ways to neutralize enemy air capability without prolonged occupation. Third, speed and decisiveness still matter. Delayed responses give irregular forces time to adapt, disperse, and hide. This was classic air power, executed with modern precision. The cost imbalance was brutal. A handful of aircraft and precision weapons eliminated infrastructure that took years and millions to build. The Houthis could not quickly replace what was lost. This is something NATO planners understand well. Airfields, ports, and logistics hubs are brittle. Destroying them imposes outsized costs relative to the effort required. In future conflicts, this logic will only become more relevant. This strike sent a warning to every non-state actor watching. Distance no longer guarantees safety. Depth does not equal immunity. And using civilian infrastructure for military purposes comes with consequences. The F-15s did not stay. They did not patrol. They did not occupy. They arrived, erased capability, and left. That is how deterrence is enforced from the air. The airport was not wiped out by chance. It was removed from the battlefield by design. Israel's F-15 first strike was not about revenge or spectacle. It was about control, about showing that escalation would be answered decisively and precisely. For the United States and NATO, the lesson is clear. Air superiority is not just about stealth or numbers. It is about knowing when to strike first, what to destroy, and how to leave before the enemy can respond. On that night in Yemen, air power didn't just speak. It ended the conversation.